Welcome to Castle Vadd. I'm Vadd, and today we are playing ARK Survival Evolved. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. If you have enjoyed Castle Vadd before, welcome back. Make sure you turn on notifications when you subscribe to stay current. This is the classic Flyer's Trap. This trap works fantastic for trapping Argentavises. You need 3 stone dinosaur gateways and 2 reinforced dinosaur gates. This trap is made out of stone, since the Argentavis cannot break a stone structure. You can see the total cost is a little expensive, but an Argentavis is not an early game tame and is worth the investment to make sure you secure your tame. Here you can see I've left a gap just big enough for me to run in and out of, but plenty small that Argentavis is unable to fit out of. This is a budget version of that classic flyer trap. We're going to again use it to catch an Argy. Instead of using 3 stone dinosaur gateways, we're just going to need 1. The key here is to understand that an Argentavis can fit through a gap that's 1 wide and 2 tall. However, those double door frames are a little more narrow than 1 wide, so the Argentavis cannot fit through this gap. A stone hatch frame costs slightly less resources than a stone ceiling. Here you can see the breakdown between, if you're going to use the classic Flyer's Trap, that's great. If you want a trap that's about half the cost, you've got a second option with the budget Flyer's Trap. Now, if the Argy can't fit through a 1 wide gap, this of course begs the question, can we make it with pillars? Yes, you could make this trap using a single pillar and 1 stone ceiling or stone hatch frame. Again, I'm going to use this double door frame here to kind of measure, make sure I don't have a gap it can fit through. I'm going to kite it in with my Pteranodon, no problem. Of course, the question becomes, if I can do it with something 3 pillars tall, the Argy can fit through a 1x2 gap. Could I do the same thing with something 2 pillars tall? Could we get a trap that's even more cost efficient? The answer is yes. You can make a smaller Argentavis trap. I don't recommend doing this. It's a hassle to build. There's nothing more upsetting than building it and realizing it's just a little bit off. Spend the extra resources to secure that tame. Of course, if you don't want to use a dinosaur gateway, there's an even cheaper trap. It's going to involve 2 stone fence supports and a stone pillar. And remember that Argy can fit through a 1x2 wall gap. So when you're building the Barato Argy Trap, you need to look at the way the door swings open. We're going to use this door to make a gap smaller than 1 wide to pin the Argy into the trap. So since the door here swings left, we're going to build the rest of the trap to the right. If this trap gets nerfed in a future ARK update, you can continue to build it. You'll probably need to adjust maybe some fence foundations underneath or just 1 stone foundation. Here you can see the breakdown that the classic Flyer's Trap is about twice the cost of the budget Flyer Trap, and the Barato Argy Trap is about half the cost of the budget Flyer's Trap. Remember to open the door on the Barato Trap once your tame is in the trap to secure it. When taming griffins, the classic Flyer's Trap is a great way to go. Again, we need 3 stone dinosaur gateways and 2 reinforced dinosaur gates. Griffins can fit through a 2x2 wall gap, so we can leave a fairly large gap in our trap and have no concern with the griffin escaping. If you're having trouble getting the griffin into the classic Flyer's Trap, I recommend trying the stretched classic, which involves more stone dinosaur gateways. This is going to give you lots of room to set up your griffin to follow you into the trap. And again, griffins can fit through at smallest a 2 wide and 2 tall gaps, so we can leave very large gaps in this trap and have no concern. We want to build with stone tier structures so the griffin cannot break our trap. And here we have a Pteranodon we're going to use to get the griffin into the trap. I'm going to hop off the Pteranodon, close the gate, and fly my tame out, who is of course on passive, so I don't have him trying to fight the griffin I'm trying to tame here. The Stretch Classic, just like the classic Flyer's Trap, is a great trap for getting a griffin tamed. My preference is to use a basic griffin trap. We're going to take advantage of the Griffin only fitting through a 2x2 gap, and we're going to use the stone double door frames, which is plenty wide for our Argy to fly through, for our snow owl to sneak its way through, for us to run through. This trap is going to be significantly more cost effective than the stretch classic. Again, if we're going to use a stone ceiling, we can use a stone hatch frame. It's going to be a little cheaper to use. The basic Griffin trap I find very easy to build, very easy to use, and it keeps my flyer safe, it keeps me a little safer, and it's a smoother taming experience, and it's more cost effective than building a whole bunch of dinosaur gates and having to carry the extra weight that those gates are around. Of course, if you don't want to use a dinosaur gate at all, we do have a Barato Griffin Trap, which again will use the stone tier structures. We're going to need a stone pillar when building the Barato Trap. We need to be careful and look at which way the door opens. For the Griffin, they have a little bit wider attack radius than the Argy, so I like to put an extra wall here. Whichever way the door opens, we're going to make sure that on the opposite side we are blocking off the possible escape, because the Griffin can only fit through a 2x2 wall gap. So by opening this door, we're going to have a gap that is smaller than too wide and too tall, so we can trap the Griffin without having to use a dinosaur gate. This trap is about a quarter of the cost of the classic flyer. You can see the basic Griffin trap is a little more expensive than the classic flyer, but significantly cheaper than the stretched classic. Again, don't forget to open the door once you have your Griffin in the trap to secure your tame. The Griffin creates that big downdraft. Stay calm, run over, open the door. When taming snow owls, we can of course use the classic flyers trap. Here the trap is way too wide. We need to have a much tighter gap for the snow owl. That snow owl can fit through a double door frame. We want to be building out of stone tier structures so the snow owl does not break our trap and escape. This trap of course prevents us from using a pteranodon to kite the snow owl into the trap, so we're gonna have to adapt. Here we have the snow owl special. It is of course more cost effective to use stone hatch frames instead of stone ceilings. The trap I built here is 8 foundations long and 2 wide. You do not have to build it this long if you are constrained by resources or space. The key to this trap's success is that about halfway in, I'm going to put some more stone door frames, and I'm going to leave one gap open. This gap is just big enough for a pteranodon to fly through. A pteranodon cannot walk through this gap, but it can fly through this gap. And if we're worried that the snow owl is going to follow us through, we can of course put another stone door frame down to prevent that. You could build this as a 2x2 foundation and just the stone door frames. However, I like to put a second gate. I feel it makes the process a little more relaxing. Here you can see I have the snow owl in the trap, and off the back of the pteranodon I will place the gate. This means the snow owl still needs the big gate closed. No problem, I can run right through and do that. And here we have the snow owl secured in the snow owl special. Of course, if you don't want to use a dino gate, we have the Barata snow owl trap. You're gonna need a stone pillar, and to remember that snow owls fit through double door frames. I recommend building this trap where the snow owl is going to easily chase you into it. You can do this on foot. You can do this on the back of a flyer. Again, with the Barata trap, you need to make sure you close the door after your tame is secured in the trap. Here we can see a breakdown of the cost. The Barata snow owl trap is about a quarter the cost of the classic flyer trap, making it significantly more resource friendly. This trap is also significantly lighter to build for your carry weight. The snow owl special cost about as much as you want to build it. You can make that trap huge or not. When taming the Tropeognathus, the classic flyers trap is a great way to go. The Tropeognathus fits through a 2x2 wall gap, so we can leave a fairly large gap. If you're having trouble getting the Tropeo into the trap, you can of course build the stretch classic. You can make this trap as long as you want. I recommend about 6. Anything more is overkill, anything less sometimes feels underkill. If you don't want to spend all the resources on getting a Tropeognathus into a stretch classic, the basic Tropeo trap is the way I recommend go. It is always a little bit cheaper to build a stone hatch frame instead of a stone ceiling. Remember, the Tropeognathus can fit through a 2x2 gap, so as long as you don't have a gap that is 2 walls or foundations wide and 2 walls or foundations tall, the Tropeo is not going to escape. We want to be building out of stone tier structures to make sure that Tropeognathus does not break our trap. Since the Tropeognathus does not fit through a 2x2 gap, I can leave gaps plenty wide for my Pteranodon to fly through if I want to kite them in with that, or I can fly a snow owl through these gaps as well. Of course, when taming the Tropeognathus, we have to make sure we have room to shoot our chain bola through the trap we build so that we can start our passive tame. You can only feed the Tropeo when you have a chain bola around it. You can mount a chain bola on a ground, on a foundation, or anything with a platform saddle can also have a chain bola launched from the ballista turret. This is the part where you tell me that, man, all those traps are really expensive and high profile. We can build a Barato Tropeognathus trap. We're going to use some stone fence supports and some stone pillars. We want to remember when building the Barato trap, whichever way the door opens, we want to set up the gap to be opposite of that. The Tropeo can only fit through a 2x2 wall gap. By opening that door, we make a gap that is now smaller than 2 wide and 2 tall, thus trapping the Tropeognathus in the trap. If this trap gets nerfed in a future ARK update, we can adapt with some fence foundations or maybe just a single stone foundation underneath to properly support the structure. Remember, once the Tropeognathus is in the trap, to run over and open the door to secure the tame. Here we can see the breakdown of the prices for the different Tropeo traps. Thanks for watching to the end. There's a little bit of bonus content, a little bit of frosting for this video. If you're having trouble getting tames into the trap, you can of course utilize a pressure plate. You're going to want to pin code the door you want open. You're going to place your pressure plate, and then you're going to set the pin code on the pressure plate to match the pin code on the door you just pin coded. That way, when you step onto the pressure plate, the door will open, and if you step onto the pressure plate again, the door will close. Here we can see I've got a Griffin coming into a basic Griffin trap, and instead of running over there through the downdraft and fighting the Griffin to close the door, I'm just going to step on this plate, safely securing the tame, protecting my tamed Pteranodon, protecting me, and ensuring the Griffin is safely in the trap. If you do not have access to pressure plates, you can use a remote keypad. It's more expensive. You're going to need a generator and electronics and gasoline, but it's an option. You're going to pin code the door the same way, and then you can run through the trap and tap the pin code to open and close the door.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Feel free to comment with suggestions for future content you'd like to see. If you would like to see more quality content, please consider supporting the channel through Patreon and/or utilizing the affiliated links. Thank you.